Welcome, everyone. Bienvenidos. We are so excited to have you with us this morning, or afternoon, sorry, for our virtual meeting with some of our animals. Thank you for joining us. To view live closed captions in English and Spanish, please click on the external link that we are dropping in the chat right now. For our guests watching on YouTube, the link to closed captions is in English and Spanish in the video description. Para ver los subtítulos en directo en inglés y español, haga clic en el enlace externo que se encuentra en el chat. Para nuestros invitados que están viendo a través de YouTube, el enlace a los subtítulos en inglés y español se encuentra en la descripción. My name is Jessica, and I work with the Natural History Museum on our education team. Now, you might be surprised to learn that the museum even has live animals, but we do have over 100 different species of living animals that are in places like our nature lab, the Bugtopia exhibit in the Discovery Center, and some that live behind the scenes, which you're actually going to get to see today. I'm joined today by our live animal program team, and along with our animal ambassadors, they're here to help connect your hearts and minds to the science that happens at the Natural History Museum. Lisa Gonzalez, who you'll be hearing from in a moment, is our program manager of invertebrate living collections at the museum. And she has a few special friends to share with you today. We also have some helpers from our education department, Rachel, Amanda, and Julie, who will be assisting behind the scenes. Thanks, team. So today we're going to be together for about 30 minutes and get to meet a couple of our amazing animals. After Lisa is done sharing, we're going to get to answer some of your questions about the animals that we've shared. Now, this might be a different format of Zoom than some of our students joining today are used to. You won't see any of your classmates, your teacher, or any of the other people watching this program today, and we can't see or hear you. You'll only be able to see and hear us. So since we can't actually see one another, I do want to take a moment to make a shout out to students joining us from all of today's schools. You'll want to type your questions directly into the chat for us to see it, and your question will only be seen by the museum staff who are running the Zoom right now. The chat box is currently closed, but we will open it up during Lisa's presentation. We ask that all of our friends joining us today only put questions or comments related to the presentation in the chat. This helps us make sure that we can get through as many questions as possible. To be respectful of our helpers, we also ask that participants are communicating respectfully and using appropriate language in the chat. Folks that are not following our code of conduct may be removed from the program this morning. Now, we'll try to get to as many questions as we can, but in case we don't get to answer your questions today, we encourage you to record your ideas and you can learn more about the animals on your own. If you'd like to grab a piece of paper and a pencil so you can record your experience while you're watching today, you can note down any of those questions you have, maybe a few facts that you learned, or draw or write a description of what the animals look like today. All right, so we can go ahead and get started. We're going to turn it over to Lisa so that we can get to meet some of our special animal ambassadors. Lisa, take it away.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today. I am currently sitting inside of a special room that we call our insectary, where we keep hundreds of insects, spiders, millipedes, and centipedes that we take care of on a daily basis. Before we bring out some of our special animals to share with you today, I have just a couple of slides that I want to show you that I think will really help us with our conversation and will really just help us to learn about these animals today. So anytime I talk about insects, I always start off with a slide with this word, entomologist. Maybe some of you have heard this word before, maybe you've heard the word entomology before, and all it means is people who study insects or animals really closely related to insects like spiders. So entomologists, we have really fun job. We work in labs sometimes we're out in the field. Some of us work in museums and zoos, some at universities, and we study insects in a lot of different ways. One thing we do is we want to look at insects' bodies and make observations about their bodies. Sometimes we look at their relationships to other animals. We study where they come from. And probably most importantly, I believe, we look at what insects eat because that impacts the environment, usually in a beneficial way. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide, and we're going to talk a little bit about what insects eat, especially the insects we're going to meet today. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. There we go. Thank you. So what do insects eat? Well, this is the cart that we use, that we bring out when we feed our animals. And you can see that there's some plants on there. There's some fruit that looks a little mushy. Maybe some of you recognize things that you might eat at home. I know I'm a big fan of bananas and apples. On the left, there's a cactus. Does anyone out there eat cactus? You know, my grandma used to eat nopales for breakfast every day. So some people eat cactus. So any insects or really any kind of animal that is a plant eater, we call them an herbivore. So that's one of the words that we want to remember today because that's going to help us with our discussion. So in addition to eating plants, if you go to the next slide, here are some of the other things that we bring out when we take care of the animals that live here at the museum. We bring out things that have protein in them because insects and their relatives, like millipedes, need protein in order to grow. And you know what? That's true for us as well, right? We also need to eat protein. Some people eat protein in the forms of animals, but some people don't eat animals. So then where do we get our protein from? Well, believe it or not, that thing in the middle that you see, those are little seeds. If you eat beans, if you eat nuts like peanut butter, you are eating seeds and that's how you're getting protein. Now, a really important thing I want to point out, on the right-hand side, you see some pollen. We feed some of our insects pollen, and maybe you recognize the word pollen because it's in the word pollinate or pollinator. So a lot of insects are incredibly important because they move pollen around and they help plants grow. Insects are incredibly important pollinators. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so today in particular, what we're talking about are insects that eat fruit, leaves, wood, mushrooms, basically plant matter. But in particular, they're eating those things as those things are starting to rot. So think about something like if you go out on a nature walk and you see plants, you see leaf litter on the ground and everything kind of looks all mushy, or maybe you see some fruit that's fallen on the ground and it looks like something like, ooh, I wouldn't want to eat it, but hey, look, it's covered in bugs. Maybe you see a rotting log and there's mushrooms growing on it. Those are all examples of the kind of food that would be eaten by animals we call decomposers. Now, there are about 1 million insects in the world that we know of. It's probably a lot higher than that. We don't know exactly how many are decomposers, but we know a lot of them are. Let's just say probably at least 50%. All these animals are the cleanup crew of this planet, and they are helping to turn all of that rotting, icky stuff back into usable soil so plants can grow. This is a really, really important job that they're doing. So let's go ahead and switch over to the camera so that you can meet some of these heroes that are our decomposers. So give me 1 second. I'm going to share our screen. We're going to put it on our bug cam. All righty, and let's go ahead and do this. Enter full screen. Hopefully that's looking okay. Somebody will let me know if it's not. And our very first bug that we have today to show you is this little guy right here. So this is a type of cockroach, and in particular, this one is called a hissing cockroach. Let me lift it up a little bit and see if that's a little bit clearer. So hissing cockroaches are really kind of famous, believe it or not. I think they are really famous. They've been in a lot of movies. They're famous because they actually can produce a sound, a hissing sound, with a special little hole on the side of their body. Now, insects do not breathe through their mouths like we do. They actually have little holes called spiracles. It's a little too hard to see, but they're on the side of their body, and that's where air comes in. And hissing cockroaches in particular, I'm going to try to adjust this for better light here. Hissing cockroaches in particular have a special spiracle, and they push air out of it. It makes a little hissing sound. Now, this little guy, for some reason, he's got one of his antennae is kind of hiding under, but you can see one poking out. And this one right here is actually a male, a boy, and you can tell because he's got these two little kind of bumps on the top of his head. So cockroaches, there's thousands of different species, different kinds of cockroaches in the world. Most of them are decomposers that live in forests. We're going to bring out one more here. Thank you so much. If you hear me say thank you to someone, that is my lovely assistant, Eric, who's helping me out today with some bug wrangling. Okay, so here's another cockroach. This one is called a giant tropical cockroach. Now, that hissing cockroach we saw comes from Africa, from an island called Madagascar, that some of you may have heard of. This cockroach here, this giant tropical cockroach, is one that's more local. It comes from Mexico, Central America, and going down into South America. This is one of the biggest cockroaches in the world, mainly because of how big those wings are. You see those beautiful shiny wings there? I'm going to try to hold this buddy gently. I know, I'm sorry. It's a little startled, huh? It's like, what's going on? Let me see if you can see how big the wings are. Maybe not. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So if I do this, can you see how long the wing is there coming off the end of the body? So that length is what makes it one of the biggest roaches in the world. So again, this is a cockroach, not one that would eat people's trash or might come into someone's home. This is a cockroach that's living out in the forest, and it's a decomposer. It's eating all the rotting wood and rotting fruit. So it's doing a really important job, like most cockroaches. Now, I think this is a beautiful cockroach. Maybe not everyone agrees, but let's look at the next one. There we go. Doing a little cockroach wrangling over here. Okay, let's take a look at this one. And I want you to be honest here and tell me if you think this is a pretty cockroach. It's running around. Can you see this little shiny green buddy in here? Let me put it on my hand. I just want to make sure it doesn't run away. This is always the trick, right? You don't want it to escape. Okay, there we go. That might help a little bit. Can you see what a shiny green cockroach is? It's like a little jewel. There we go. This guy's on the move. He wants to hide. Okay, so this particular cockroach comes from the rainforest in Vietnam, which is in tropical Asia. Oh, he's trying to escape. And you might think, okay, why would a cockroach be shiny green? Doesn't it want to blend in and be brown like most cockroaches and blend in with the dirt? Well, I want you to picture being in a rainforest with lots of plants, lots of green plants, and imagine right after it rains, there's little dewdrops on those plants, and the sunlight is coming through and it's glistening. If you picture that, and then you imagine this little cockroach, this shiny green cockroach hanging out in that environment, well, he would blend right in, right? So this is actually really good camouflage for insects that live in rainforests. Okay, so he wanted to go back and hide. So we'll go ahead and let him do that. And speaking of shiny green, we're actually going to move on to our next group of insects that are incredibly important decomposers. This is his food right here. He actually came along with it, which is a rotting banana. You know, I love to eat bananas, but as soon as they start to get a little rotten, I say, I'm not going to eat this one. I'm going to bring it in for my little beetle friends. This is a type of beetle that is called a stag beetle. And this one in particular, they call a rainbow stag beetle. Let me see if I can get that to focus a little bit. Thank you. This is a new camera, so I'm getting used to it. So thank you for being a little patient as I figure it out. So this beautiful rainbow stag beetle actually comes from Australia, from wetter parts of Australia, and then from some areas of the world that are above Australia. So getting into like the tropical areas. So remember what I mentioned? Oh, he's wiping off his face. So cute. Remember what I mentioned earlier about if you live in the rainforest, being a shiny bug actually helps you camouflage because there's a lot of dewdrops in the rainforest. So these beetles, when they're adults, this one, by the way, is fully grown. This is a fully grown male. They're going to feed on a lot of rotting stuff on the ground, especially fruit. They love sugary stuff, just like me. But their babies are actually feeding on something else. I'm going to show you a baby in a minute, but let me show you one more stag beetle that I just think is just amazing. So this one goes in here. Eric is really doing a good job helping me wrangle these bugs today. Whoa, look at this guy. Look at this buddy. So this is actually, I'll put my hand close so you can see how big it is. Sometimes I hold these in my hands, but I will usually wear a glove, and you can probably guess why. Check out these big mandibles on the front. These are the mouth parts that the beetles use. Believe it or not, they don't really use them so much to defend themselves. They can, but they mostly use them to get into silly wrestling fights with other male beetles. The boys like to put on these big battles because they think, it's going to get me a girlfriend. So yeah, that's why they have these big mandibles. But this buddy, you would think with those big mouth parts that maybe he's chomping on other animals, but no, he's actually still eating things like rotting fruit that's really soft and mushy. That's their favorite. The mushier, the better. And they will actually just go up to a rotting banana and put their whole face in it and just nom, nom, nom the afternoon away. So again, this is an animal that's helping as a decomposer to break down rotting things and to basically put it back into the soil in the form of poop. And it helps to recycle those nutrients. So it's doing a really important job. It's helping, it's part of the cleanup crew. So I want to show you what the babies look like. You met two adult beetles. Those were fully grown, but now we're going to try to peek inside and see if we can see. I can't take this grub out because it might be too harmful for the grub, but okay, there we go. It's getting focused now. Can you see right here? Do you see a little white thing that's kind of moving around in there? Sorry, the view is not very good, but I just wanted to try to show you just to illustrate again. This is a little beetle grub. This is what we call a larva. Oh, look at its face. We can see its little face right now. Oh, hello, baby. So it's in there. It's feeding on this white stuff is fungus. It's actually feeding on that fungus and feeding on that soil. And again, helping to return the nutrients into the ground. So this is a very important job that this little beautiful little beetle grub is doing. And when he's fully grown, he's going to turn into that beetle that you just saw, that giant stag beetle. So he's just a baby. He's only a few months old. It's going to take him about a year before he'll transform into a big beetle. So we're really excited about this little baby we have. All righty. We are going to switch it up a little bit because so far the animals we've looked at were all six-legged insects. But take a look at this creature right here. It's still a little coiled up. I'm hoping in a minute it's going to wake up. I have another one in there just in case. Let's see. We might have a backup here. That might be a little bit less sleepy. Let's see. Oh, we're going to do our backup because this buddy is very sleepy. Here we go. Oh. Okay, so those insects that we all looked at, the roaches and the beetles, had 6 legs. But what about this guy? Definitely more than 6 legs. This is a giant African millipede. Comes from many different countries in Africa. You can find it all the way across the continent of Africa. They have probably between 200 and 300 legs. I haven't counted this particular one, but this one is pretty fully grown. They can be longer than a ruler. If you look at a ruler, that should be 12 inches. They could be a little bit longer than that ruler. So this is very long. Now we're getting a sense, now that he's kind of on a little walkabout, we're getting a sense of how long he is. He or she, I don't know if this is a boy or a girl. It's hard to tell. But these are incredibly important decomposers because they build complex tunnels. What I mean by that is deep under the ground, moving in a lot of different directions. They're making these tunnels under the ground, and they're actually eating the soil itself and a lot of rotting things in the soil. And again, they're helping to recycle all those nutrients so that plants can then use it to grow. It's an incredibly important job. Not only are they helping as decomposers by eating rotting stuff, they are making these special tunnels underground that allows air to get into the soil. And that itself is important. Now, maybe some of you have studied worms and why worms are important in the soil because they help to do something we call aerate the soil. You know, that just means they're putting oxygen or air in the soil. Well, this millipede does the same thing. Once the air can flow into the soil, it helps all these special chemical processes to go on, and it helps for all those nutrients to get recycled. So this is such an important job. Oh, he's on the go. He's like, yeah, I have places to be. Let's try this. There we go. So this giant African millipede, just like the cockroaches, just like the beetle, we should give them a little thank you, or blow them a little kiss, because they're doing incredibly important work. And we don't even realize it most of the time, right? We go about our business and we don't realize all these jobs that insects are doing that helps this planet to function and stay healthy. Now, I haven't been keeping track of time, so let me know if I have more time. I have one more bug, but I just want to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A. So if one of the NHM...
You're good, Lisa.
Do we have time for one more?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Okay. How much time do I have? If you don't mind telling me. I have a watch on. I should check that.
A couple minutes. Yeah, as long as we've got maybe 5-7 minutes for Q&A.
Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and do one last bug. This one's just going to take like a little less than a minute to get out, but it's worth it. Trust me. I'm going to put her on my hand or leave her on the stick. Okay. So we have been talking mostly about decomposers. This beautiful creature right here actually prefers to eat her salad a little bit more fresh than the other bugs that we talked about, but I just wanted to bring her out because she's so spectacular. So believe it or not, this is a type of stick insect. Usually when we think of a stick insect, we think of something that looks more like a stick, right? That might be kind of long and thin and maybe a brownish color, but stick bugs come in a lot of different varieties, and some of them look more like leaves. So I think this is a great example of a stick bug that would blend in with really fresh leaves because she's just bright green. And look at these little wings she has. They almost look like they have little veins in them, just the way leaves do. So she's just going to be hiding out in the forest. She also comes from tropical Asia, like some of the other bugs we met today. And she'll just kind of sit there and very casually kind of munch on the leaves. Let me see if I can turn this. I'm going to kind of keep a hand here so that she doesn't fall. You can get a little side view. Oh, she's doing her little pose. So this is one of the poses they do. She can probably sense she's not in her plants and maybe she's feeling a little nervous. So she's doing this kind of little dance. And sometimes they'll even kick out their legs and make a little noise. And that's just really letting other animals know, I'm scared, please leave me alone. She doesn't have any venom. She doesn't have a strong bite. Let me help her out there. There we go. So honestly, she can't really do anything to harm a person. She's harmless. The only thing she can do is stay hidden in the forest. She's got some little spines on her body. They're not super sharp. You can see I just touched it gently, but those all help to protect her while she sits out there in the jungle and just munches on leaves all day like a sweet little angel. So I guess we will end with this stick bug. I just realized I didn't tell you the name. They call them Malaysian jungle nymphs. That's the name for this stick bug. We're going to go ahead and put her back in her house with her stick bug friends, where she'll feel nice and safe and she can eat some leaves. And then we'll have some time for some questions and answers.
Awesome. So cool. Glad we got that last bug in.
Yes, same.
All right. So we have a ton of questions. So we'll get right to it. So Oliver is wondering if we give our insects names.
Oh, that's a great question. So for the insects that we have where they don't live a very long time, there's some insects that live a very short time, like less than a year or so, and we have lots of them. Example, our cockroaches, we have a lot. It doesn't make sense for us to give them individual names. It would be hard for us to keep track. But we do have some animals that live here at the museum, insects, and in particular, some spiders like our tarantulas that can live for many years. Some of them can live 5, 10, even up to 20 years. So these are animals that we love, just like you might have a pet dog or a cat at home. We care for them and we love them and we give them individual names. So the answer is yes for some, but not all.
That makes sense. Renata is wondering, do insects have hearts and brains?
Ooh, yes. So insects have the same organs we have, but it's a different version. It doesn't look the same as our brain or our heart. So that would be like a whole anatomy class that I would love to be able to teach. Maybe we'll do that in the future. But the quick answer is that their brain looks like a really kind of small little cluster of nerves in their head. And then along their body, there are also little small clusters of nerves that help to power or move their body. And then their heart is actually a long tube that runs along their back. So it's not a pumping muscle like ours is, but it helps to circulate their version of blood in their body.
Super cool. Thank you. Let's see. Corey is wondering, where do you get your insects?
So we team up with other people that do a similar job that we do, that work at museums and zoos. And we often will trade. Like somebody might say, hey, we have a bunch of baby mantids. We can't take care of all of them. Can somebody take some in? We say, yeah, give us some baby mantids. So we do a lot of trading. Sometimes we buy them from people who sell them. There are people who actually breed and sell tarantulas for a living. So sometimes we reach out to one of them. And then we breed some of our own here, like you met the little beetle grub today. So some of the bugs we just are born here at the museum and we take care of them and breed them.
Very cool. We have a couple questions about the millipede. So I'll start with, now this person's screen name is Animal, so that's what I'm going to call them. Animal is wondering, what does the millipede eat?
Oh, yes. So I did mention that the millipede likes to eat soil. Believe it or not, it's actually eating the dirt, just like earthworms eat dirt. But in addition to that, we give the millipede some of those fruits and veggies that you saw in that very first slide when I had the tray out. And they also really like to eat mushrooms and they eat rotting leaves. So I'll go out and I collect what's called mulch. And that's basically just leaves as it's starting to fall apart and get all mucky. And they love to eat that as well. But most of their diet is the soil itself, but they need to make sure the soil is very healthy. So we get soil like out of compost bins and make sure there's a lot of good nutrients in the soil for them.
That makes sense. Jacqueline and actually a couple of other students are wondering, how many insects do you have?
Well, we don't know how many individual insects we have because we have some, tanks that are full of roaches or full of millipedes, for instance. Like we have a lot of our millipedes right now. So I'm going to just throw out a guess that we have probably about 300, 400 individual insects. And then in terms of species, so types of insects, Eric, what would you say we have? Maybe about 50 species, something like that. I need to go do a count so I can know exactly, but we have about 50 different species of insects. That's a pretty good number. It's close.
Very cool.
And when our butterfly pavilion opens, then we have way more, right? So
yeah, coming soon, y'all. Okay, Miller is wondering, how do bugs talk to each other?
Oh, so bugs do talk to each other. They just use a different form of communication or language than we do. They don't open their mouths and go blah, blah, blah. That would be cool if they did, but they don't. So they mainly are going to be using smell to communicate, believe it or not. We have a special word for it, of course. Scientists always have a special word for things. We call it pheromones. And pheromones is just a chemical that gets released that other insects can smell. And they can talk to other insects and say, I'm scared, leave me alone, I'm upset, don't eat me. I might attack you, or they might say, hey, I'm interested in getting to know you. So they have a form of language through smell and through a chemical we call pheromones. They can also make noise in different ways. So we talked about the hissing cockroach being able to hiss. Crickets, I bet you know this, crickets rub their wings together, and that's one way that they communicate to other crickets. So sometimes they use sound, they just can't make a sound out of their mouth. So they have to use different body parts to make that sound, to communicate. And then, last, I almost forgot, they use body language. right? So they'll do things like lift up their arms or sway back and forth. All of that is communication, just using parts of their body and maybe using colors on their body to communicate different things.
So cool, so creative. Okay, we have time for one more question. Farah? No, sorry. Yes, Farah is wondering, do you have a favorite bug?
Oh, it changes almost every week. I feel like every time I learn about a new bug, I'm like, oh, it's so cool. It's my favorite. I'm really, really excited about bugs, like obsessed. So it's very hard for me to pick a favorite, but I'll give you this answer. So I'm giving you at least an answer. For me, the weirder, the better. So there are some insects that just have really strange behaviors, or maybe there's parts on their body that are really weird. There's like some flies where their eyes come out like a hammerhead shark. Insects that have really crazy camouflage or weird spines. That's what really gets my heart pumping. So my general answer is the weirder, the better. If I give you a more specific answer, I'm actually a big fan of wasps, believe it or not. I love little tiny wasps because it's a group of insects most people don't know about, and it's a whole hidden world out there. So yeah, that's the best I can answer, because really I love them all.
Awesome answer. Great teasers in there. Lisa, thank you so much. We are just about out of time. So let you say goodbye to your students, and then Julie will start sharing screen and we will wrap it up. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who joined today. Thank you for being curious and kind to animals like insects. Thank you.
So thank you to our friends and our students for joining us this afternoon. We learned so much about the cleanup crew. If you want to see more of our live animal program, give them a follow on Instagram at NHMLA Live Animals. We will also have all the videos from these presentations on our YouTube channel for you to watch later. And you can catch this recording and others at youtube.com/NHMLA. Thank you again for joining us. Hope to see you again soon.